You right, Baba?
Your shin's on the table.
You right, Baba? You ready to record?
Yes.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the CC Club. The club. I keep saying that. I say that all the time. But hi and welcome. This is just basically a channel, a platform, whatever it is, just to talk about our parenting journey with little Chisara Alorea. She is both of our first child. I hope you don't have any children anywhere.
Not that I know of.
Cool. So she's both of our first child, and she's 2 months old. She's exactly 9 weeks. She was 9 weeks yesterday, and I've not written my story anywhere or recorded my story. When I went for one of my midwife checks and one of like her checkups, my midwife told me to write my story. So I thought, why not record it and share it? When I was pregnant, I read a lot of birth stories. I watched a lot of birth stories because one, it was something to do towards the end of my pregnancy whilst I was waiting for Chi-Chi's arrival. But it was also really helpful to like get me prepared mentally about what was to come. And I know sometimes people say don't look at other people's birth stories because it can be quite horrific and it can scare you. But in my experience, I actually found it really helpful because I kept thinking, okay, so what am I going to do if I encounter this? So yeah, let's just get into the story. Curtis is gonna help me with bits of the story that I don't necessarily remember because I was a bit and just sort of fill in with what he found entertaining during my birth.
Pretty much. All the important parts from a male's perspective.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? I think for a lot of my videos, or a lot of these videos, I'm probably gonna try and have Curtis in them. He's not that happy about always being in them, but
drum up some reward system.
Yes, reward system, if you know what that means. But yeah, so I think it's important to have Curtis sort of tell these stories as well with me because our parenting journey has been together. He's been so hands-on, he's been so involved from day one. So when we're talking, why are you laughing?
Hands-on from day one. It's like conception. Yeah. So, yeah.
And he's going to distract a lot. But anyway, Curtis has been there from, I say day one, from the first day of my pregnancy, but why?
Can't be there from day 2, can I?
Why?
Well, because how did we conceive?
Oh, yeah. So Curtis has been there from day one.
That's what she tells me.
Oh, gosh, I'm getting sidetracked. But anyway, Curtis has been there from day one since she was born, like being very hands-on, very involved. She absolutely adores him. She smiles and laughs at him a lot. So I thought, whilst we're talking at parenting, here is the other half of my parenting journey, so why not include him? And he has a better recollection of my birth story than I have. When I first gave birth, I told the story so much, I feel like it's ingrained, like a script in my head. But yeah, here we go. So, where do I start?
Probably from going into labour.
Yeah, I start from going into labour. You know what, I think I did a video talking about my pregnancy, but I'll do another video sort of talking about my pregnancy now that I'm not pregnant, because I think I did the video about my pregnancy I did when I was pregnant. But anyway, we'll start from when the contractions started. When did they start? So they started on was it a Friday night?
Friday the 8th.
Oh, you remember the day.
It's 2 days before she was born.
Okay, yeah, so it started on Friday the 8th. This is why I have him here. It started
the
on...
only reason.
Because I don't remember numbers or dates. But yeah, it started on Friday the 8th, and I started off having like... They're like sort of period pain sort of cramps, and they'd come and they'd be painful, and I'd like be squeezing Curtis's hand and they'd pass. At first they weren't that painful, but when it started in the night around 10 a.m. and my friend Jerry, love you, had gone into labour. So she'd messaged to say that she was in labour and then she was waiting for the baby. And as soon as we saw her message, my contractions more or less started, and it was around 10 o'clock at night. And then around 1 a.m. they got a bit more painful because I started squeezing Curtis's hands whenever it got a bit too much. I say a bit too much, but it was painful. And once it passed, I was laughing in between and still talking normally. It wasn't like really bad. And then Okay, so I don't remember. I don't necessarily remember them being too painful during the night, but I do remember not being able to sleep properly because every single time a contraction came, it'd wake me up. I'd go through it, squeeze Curtis's hand, and then maybe fall back asleep. You stayed awake most of that night, didn't you? Because I kept squeezing your hand.
I was just going to say I don't remember being awake for that, but was it... You sure I didn't sleep through the Friday night and Saturday night? It was when I stayed awake with you. So I don't feel like I stayed awake both nights.
No, I think but you went to bed a bit later because I was trying to sleep, but every single time I woke up, I'd squeeze your hand and I kept you awake.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was squeezing Curtis's hands every single time I felt a pain. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, I couldn't sleep anymore, and I had to throw up. So I ran downstairs. Our toilet's downstairs, which is really annoying when you're pregnant to have the toilet downstairs. But anyway, ran downstairs, threw up, and when I came upstairs, I couldn't really sleep anymore. And I think I messaged like my mum and a few people saying, okay, I think I've gone into labour. So anyway, in the morning I was throwing up. I started timing my contractions probably around 8 o'clock. I started timing them, and they went from being like maybe every 20 minutes to every 10 minutes to every like 7 minutes. Then they stayed consistently like at every 7 minutes. Yeah, so I called the birth centre I was giving birth at, and I called them and I was like, okay, I think I've gone into labour because I'm having contractions. They're quite consistent. They're every 7 minutes at the moment, and they were lasting like around a minute each. And then they said that once they got a bit more consistent, so when they were lasting like 30 seconds to a minute and were coming every 5 minutes, that I should give them a call back. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's go time, she's coming. I was so excited to like get into labour because by that point I was tired of being pregnant, and I was just like...
We both were.
And I was literally trying everything to induce my labour. Actually, I think that's what... rewind to how that happened. On the Friday night, I obviously had read a lot of things about how to induce labour, and sexual intercourse was one of them. So on the Friday night, me and Curtis kept calling it utility sex. It was sex for a purpose, which was to get the baby out. So we booked into utility sex. I really think that's what got it going. Anyways, so anyway, so after speaking to the birth centre, the contractions were coming, but then around like 2 o'clock, they got less. They were like every...
they stopped, didn't they? Just every afternoon, yeah.
They went to every 20 minutes and then went to every 40 minutes, and then by like 3, 4...
They just stopped, weren't they?
They just stopped. And I was so angry and I was so annoyed. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the false alarm. And I was so excited and ready to go. We had our bags packed. I think we packed the bags and everything was ready. And then I remember like my friend Jerry, obviously she'd given birth, and just like looking at the pictures of her baby and being like, oh, when am I going to meet my baby? I bet she's never going to come. Even though obviously I know she's going to come. But once you're in those last few days, waiting just feels like such a chore. It genuinely makes you angry, like the feeling of waiting. And everyone's like, oh yeah, she'll come. And, you know, everyone means well, but physically being pregnant. But anyway, fast forward to, it got to Saturday evening. And
it was late evening.
Like around 10, 11 p.m. And my contraction started again. Bearing in mind, I should say, we had booked in some utility intercourse again. So I think it was after I was already in a bit of pain, but not too much. But after we had, you know, did the deed to get the job going, after we did the deed to get the job going, the pain started again around like 10 to 11 p.m. And I think whilst I was having contractions, I think I made us go again because I was like... I don't
remember that.
We won't talk about it in too much detail here, but anyway, the contraction started, and this time... But yeah, so around 10, 11 o'clock, it started to really hurt, the contractions. They were a lot more painful than they were on Saturday, and I was just sort of like, oh, this really hurts, but... I've had a false start yesterday. I bet it's a false start now. And they weren't consistent. They weren't regular. They were like sometimes every 20 minutes. Sometimes
a lot more sporadic, weren't they? Not lasting as long.
But they were really painful. So anyway, I tried to fall asleep. Didn't really happen successfully. I was more or less in, like, every time a contraction came, I felt like, I wasn't crying, but I was in a lot of pain, and I kept saying to Curtis, it hurts, and just like squeezing your hand. I think on the Saturday night I was squeezing your hand a lot harder because you didn't sleep that night, because every single time I
Yeah.
tried to sleep, I'd wake up with a really painful contraction. And I think I woke up around like, I say woke up, I never really got into a deep sleep. But around like 2 p.m, I think I looked at the time and I'm like, okay, these are really starting to hurt. By 5 o'clock, I woke up feeling the need to throw up again. Ran down to the bathroom, and then I said to Curtis, like, I was more or less, I was really annoyed about how much pain I was in. I hadn't slept. I was so tired. And my mum had called me. That's what had happened. I tried to not go back to bed, but I got back in bed thinking, okay, it might be a false alarm. So I got back into bed and I was just like in pain, complaining to Curtis. Then my mum called and my mum was like trying to talk to me, and I was just getting irritated, like trying to talk to her because I was in pain and I couldn't concentrate. So she was like, oh, just give the phone to Curtis. So I gave the phone to Curtis, and my mum, she was on loudspeaker, and my mum was like, oh, have you guys not gone to the birth centre yet? And then Curtis told her why we hadn't, and she's like, oh no, she sounds like she's in a lot of pain, she needs to go. Because at this point I think I was like screaming in pain when my mum was on the phone. So I called the birth, or Curtis called the birth centre because I was in too much pain to even talk at this point. And he told them like my contractions weren't consistent, but I was in a lot of pain. And I think because they could hear me over the phone like being in a lot of pain, they're like, okay, we'll bring her in. So this is where all the fun starts. We got our stuff together. I had a shower, didn't I? Because I just felt like ugh. So I had a shower and I was in pain still at this point. I was still getting contractions. I can't even tell you how often they were because they were just so inconsistent. I didn't even bother like timing it. And at this point I didn't think I was in labour because of how inconsistent the contractions had been. But anyway, around 11 o'clock, 11:30, we left here because I remember when we were at the birth centre, I remember when we sat down and we got into the room, I looked at the time and it was 12 o'clock. And just to say, like, although I remember this story, like, the reason I remember it is because the time was there and I kept looking at the time and certain times kept flashing up to me. But in between those times, it doesn't really feel like I remember much.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, looking at the time being like, oh, what time is it? Only because I really wanted to go home. So anyway, we got there. They said, okay, go in the waiting room. The birth centre was booked at this point. I had planned to have a water birth, yeah. I planned to have a water birth and I'd planned to do hypnobirthing, but because of the lockdown and the pandemic, I wasn't able to get to any hypnobirthing classes, so we watched some like YouTube courses. I asked Curtis if I should pay to do the online course, and he was like, why? You can go on YouTube. So I tried the YouTube courses. I read some, like, I didn't read like a lot of books, but I read some like chapters in books that talked about hypnobirthing. We did a lot of practicing of breathing. We talked a lot about my birth plan. So Curtis was like very aware what I wanted. I'd written my birth plan out and everything.
Although it never got used.
Thrown out the window. I mean, if you're a person that likes to plan, by all means do a birth plan, but
it's good to have it there because it'll make you feel more comfortable about preparing for it. Well, I imagine it will for some people. It definitely did for you, but
I think it did for both of us, because by writing my plan, I knew you knew what I wanted. And we even did tests while I quizzed Curtis on my plan. But yeah, so that made me feel a lot more comfortable knowing that I knew what I wanted. But if you are the kind of person that likes to plan and stick to plans, you know, just bear in mind that this is one of those things that you're going to have to be flexible on. Because I planned to have a water birth, but by the time I'd got there, the 2 water pool rooms,
all the rooms were taken,
they were taken. All the rooms were taken. There was only one room free, and that's like the room that they book people in through. So that room was free, and they were just like, oh yeah, go in there, we'll just come and like talk to you. So I got in there. I was just waiting.
You were still having contractions and everything, weren't you?
I was still in pain, and then my midwife came in. I remember her just trying to talk to me, and I just couldn't concentrate. And I was like, can I take my trousers off? And remember, do you remember that? I was like, can I just take my trousers off? She was trying to talk to me, and I was like, I can't listen. Can I just take my trousers off? And she was like, yeah, do whatever you want. At this point, I had like the urge to just, I couldn't be in clothes. I just felt like, ugh. Anyway, so she sat me down, and she was like, okay, I was telling her my story, I told her what happened, and had gone on in the morning, and she said to me, by the sounds of what you're saying, it doesn't sound like
labour.
Yeah, the contractions you're having aren't the right contractions to get your cervix prepared, because some of them were strong. She felt my belly, and she's like, you're getting some strong contractions, but others were weaker. So at this point I just thought, oh, okay, whatever, like just send me home, I just want to sleep. So I said to her, can I have some painkillers? 'Cause I'm just in a lot of pain. And she said, okay, well, let me go and check with the doctor to see if you can get some painkillers. So she went out. At this point she was like gone out for like what, 30 minutes, 45.
It felt longer than that, to be fair. It felt over an hour, to be honest.
For me it felt shorter because I kept like sleeping and waking up through the contractions. But anyway, she comes back and she says, okay, I'm going to give you an anti-sickness, because at this point every contraction that came I was like throwing up. Yeah. So she's like, I'm going to give you an anti-sickness so we can give you some tablets. Yeah, they were going to give me some, what was it, like
some variation of codeine, I think, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. And then she's like, I'm going to go and give you that. Then she came back with anti-sickness, and she was like, okay, I'm going to see if I can get the doctor to prescribe you something stronger, because you seem like you're in a lot of pain. But I'll give you the anti-sickness, I'll check you, see how far you're dilated, and then I'll go and get the prescription for the stronger drugs. Which I was like, okay, like, yeah, give it to me. I did want a natural birth, but I wasn't very like fixated on having one. If I needed painkillers, I said that, give me painkillers. Yeah. But she offered that. I was like, okay, cool. So she gave me the anti-sickness, and it was 3:15 at this point when she gave me the anti-sickness. And then she checked me. And then when she checked me, so let's say around like 3:25, I was 2 to 3 centimeters dilated. And she was like, yeah, you might want to go home because we don't know how long you're going to be in this stage for. But I wasn't active labour.
Yeah. It's the early stages of labour.
Yeah, the early stages of labour, so you're not in active labour yet. And I was like, okay. She's like, why don't you go and have a bath, and then by the time I come back, I'll have the painkillers, and you will see. So I went and had a bath, and when she came back, I said to her, I was like, do you think if you were me, what would you do? And she says, if I was you, I'd go home, because you don't know how long you can be in this for. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I wanted to go home. Yeah. I was tired. I hadn't eaten. I wasn't necessarily hungry. I just wanted to like be in my bed and be comfortable. Anyway, she goes off after she checks me, and I'm laying in bed with Curtis, and I don't even know what happened in this period of time. I just remember I was screaming a lot.
You were up and down to the toilet, backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
You needed to poo. You didn't need to poo. You went to have a poo. You didn't have a poo.
It was, yeah. I don't remember.
Contractions again.
You said it was
the arms were going and everything everywhere.
That's your favourite part.
That was my favourite part. I
don't remember my arms going, but I do remember every single time I was in pain, I'd be like, Curtis! I'd like put my hand up, Curtis, it hurts, it hurts. That's all I remember. But obviously you saw the up and down of the hands.
It's like the In-Betweeners sketch where he gets really high in the club and his arms are going, and he can't control his arms. It's exactly like that. It's hilarious.
That was me. So yeah, but I remember the first time I got up and I was like, Curtis, I need to poo. And I ran to the toilet and nothing came out. So I went back to the bed and I laid down. I woke up again and I was like, no, Curtis, I really need to poo. And then I ran to the toilet and I said to Curtis, I tried to push and I was like, it's not poo, I think the baby's coming. And Curtis looked at me like, not like he didn't believe me. I wonder if you can repeat.
No, I don't. No, yeah. I don't know if I can repeat the look.
I want to see, because it was a bit kind of like.
It was more like, yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit more.
I was questioning it, but it was like more of a, are you serious sort of thing?
Yeah, it was like, are you serious? I knew you believed me, but the look on your face was kind of like, you like, is this happening? Anyway, I went and laid back in bed.
Was she just convinced that it could take up to 3 days to have the baby at this point?
Exactly.
Very rarely it'll come within the hour or 2 hours.
Yeah, so we weren't I think that's why, because we weren't expecting it. Then I went and lay back down, and the third time I went to run to go and poo, I said to Curtis, I think the baby's coming, get the midwife. So Curtis goes and presses the bell. I'm on the toilet trying not to push, because one of my friends told me a story that when she was in labour, that's what she felt as well. So I was trying so hard not to push. But anyway, a midwife came, or like a midwife's assistant. She came and I was on the toilet, and like my legs weren't even open. The toilet wasn't even high enough, but she like squatted and was like, oh, let's have a look. And she's like, I can't really see anything. And I remember thinking at this point, of course you're not going to see anything.
You can't get your head in the bowl with it.
Exactly. I was like, you're not at the right angle to see anything.
A mirror on a stick, like looking for bombs or something like that.
But literally, I couldn't say anything at this point, because all I was focused on was the fact that I needed to poo and I had to not push because I was scared. Then she calls another midwife in, and they're trying to get me to the bed. And I remember this because she was like, "You're panicking." I felt like she shouted at me a bit. She was like, "You're starting to panic now. You need to calm down." I remember looking at her being like, "Okay, I'll calm down." But obviously, when for anyone who's given birth, when you feel that pressure, I think your mind starts going a bit kind of like
Crazy,
in very like instinctual protective mode of, okay. So the other midwife comes out and is like, "Okay, let's get you laid down, let's have a check." And she's still speaking very calmly. I still feel like at this point no one believed me, not necessarily you, but I feel like the midwives didn't necessarily believe that the baby was coming. So we go back into the main room, and the midwife Crystal, was it Crystal? Yeah, she was really lovely. She just kept saying to me, "Go on, so lay down," and I just wasn't able to listen to her. Not that I refused to listen to her, I just couldn't like do what she was telling me to do. I couldn't follow the instructions laying down because I was in so much pain. My contractions were so painful at this point.
You weren't listening at all.
I couldn't listen.
Were still going.
Were they?
Yeah, you were just oblivious.
I was probably panicking. I was in a lot of pain. So Crystal, lovely Crystal, pushed me over the bed, like just sort of gave me a little shove in the back, and I was on all fours. When I remembered it, I thought it was Curtis who'd pushed me on the bed, but after I'd given birth, Curtis was like, "No, it wasn't me." So I thought, did I get on the bed? But once I saw my midwife, she was like, yeah, it was me. So she'd given me a little shove on the bed, and as soon as she puts me down on the bed, all I hear is, I can see hair, baby's coming.
And that was because Sharon had just wandered back in, our other midwife, to potentially give us tablets that were meant to come about.
Oh, did she have the painkillers on?
No, she was meant to give us tablets, but she came in empty-handed anyway, didn't she? She came in and that was who said, "Oh, I can see her."
Oh, was it? I thought it was someone else.
No, it was her, because she walked straight back through the door as you were pushed onto the bed, pretty much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we'd asked for him by that point, hadn't we, for them to come, and then Sharon had come back in.
And she was running from another. There was
another lady just given birth.
Yeah, she was running.
Oh, no, in fact, she hadn't given birth. She was a bit slower once. She had to leave her and come to us, yeah.
Because I was there. And the next thing I hear after I can see hair is, "Baby's coming," and give her gas and air. And I'm just there like, I don't even know what I was thinking. Honestly, I don't know what I was thinking. I was on all fours facing a window. You guys brought a beanbag for me to lean on, and I think at this point I was still going in and out because I thought this happened within 5 minutes. You told me it took like 20 minutes. But I thought it happened all really quickly. Because I remember Sharon just being like, push, and she was like, "Next time I tell you to push, baby's going to be fully out." And before she even said push, I just pushed the baby out. I remember just being like, if baby's almost there. I remember feeling the head come out and being like, if baby's almost here, you can make it. And for me, the pushing wasn't that hard. I say it wasn't that hard. No, I'm not going to minimize it. It was painful. It was hard. But compared to my contractions, the pushing felt like a relief. Because every single time the contractions stopped and I could push, it felt like, at least it's not that pain. And then when baby came out, I just remember them like bringing her underneath, like...
You brought her up in between your legs.
Yeah, between my legs. And like just like having me hold her. And at this point, I was just a bit kind of like, what's happening? And I remember looking at my baby and being like, there's a baby. That was literally my first thought. There's a baby. But I was still out of it at this point, and the only thing I'd had was like what?
Gas and air.
Gas and air.
For the time when it was after you got pushed onto the bed that you started having
gas and air. As soon as I started pushing was when they gave me gas and air.
It wasn't even like, so I had to get it out and get it all ready for you. So
did you?
It didn't take long to do, but
I didn't remember that bit.
Yeah.
I don't remember you doing that. I remember at one point when they were giving me the gas and air, they were saying, take long breaths, because I was just like just I was literally just like chugging on it, and she was like, "No, you need to take like long breaths." And I remember the midwife assistant who had shouted at me on the toilet being like, "Okay, Sharon, you need to start listening. You really need to start listening." And that's the point I think I switched on a bit. She was like, when she says push, you need to push and you need to listen so it goes right. So I remember just being like, okay, I need to do this right. If I don't do anything else, I need to do this right. I need to get my baby here right. And yeah, and the rest was, I say history, but amazing. It was literally, I don't even know how to describe the feeling of that day, because everything happened so quickly, and I didn't know I was going to give birth. I didn't know I was in labour, even though I should have known in hindsight. We should have known I was in labour, but because we'd been told that it could take a while, I didn't know that, and everything happened so quickly. So yeah, it was good. It was the best day of my life, as most mums say. But honestly, it was really an amazing day. I didn't eat anything that day at all. For 24 hours, I didn't have anything to eat. And Curtis went to the shop and was like, "Oh, what do you want?" And I was just remember being like, "A Twister." I like some mangoes, Twister, and a San Pellegrino.
Yeah, and you ate none of it.
No,
just the Twister.
I just ate the Twister. I've been obsessed with ice lollies through my pregnancy, and I just ate the Twister. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I'm gonna enjoy telling it. I hope I don't forget it, but as time has gone on, I realise I don't remember as much of it as I'd like to. So it'll be nice to have this as a memory to show baby Chi Chi. But yes, everyone's birth story is completely different. When I was pregnant, I didn't read or listen to any two stories that were the same. Although my labour was a quick labour, my mum also had a quick labour. So my mum did tell me, she did try to warn me that this was going to happen. And if I was to have another baby, I think there's a likely chance of me having another very quick active labour. So it probably won't be the same as this time, because one will be better prepared. But like I said, no two stories are ever the same. And, you know, as much as everyone's experience ranges from, you know, the softer end to the most difficult end, we're all doing an amazing job bringing a baby into this world. And I'm very fortunate that I was able to bring a baby to this world and meet my baby, as that's not always the case for a lot of people. In the past week, there's been some really sad stories. One about Nicole Thea, the vlogger, who her and her baby Rain died. May they rest peacefully. And also with Naya Rivera, yeah, whose body, I think you just told me a couple of minutes ago, they think they've discovered her body. And, you know, not everyone's always able to, you know, be as fortunate as as I was for my birth. So I really do appreciate that. But my heart does go out to Nicole's family and her partner, and also the family of Naya Rivera and her baby. It's completely sad, and it's definitely made me thankful that I was able to share such a joyous, you know, experience, and something that brought an amazing little girl into our world. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this story, and we shall be back with more from the club. And yeah, just watch the fun that we get up to. And I hope you enjoyed this video. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and we hope to see you back again at the club. But bye, guys.
Bye.
Say bye, baby.